Live.
And it's Monday. I hope everybody had a good weekend, and I appreciate y'all jumping back on here and watching my dumbass. As usual, I am Old New Dude, and he is
Richard York, Asterisk Drewborn's son.
We are with Tyrion 6, a Game of Thrones today. And it's a short chapter, so we'll talk a little bit about House of the Dragon at the end of it. And if you've seen any of our videos before, you know that the brains here. Richard will go over what he saw in the chapter, and then I'll jump in with my stupid stuff. So take it away, Richard.
Well, thank you, sir. So this is the chapter where Tyrion tells Bronn about Tysha and then promises steel and the veil to the clans. They had taken shelter beneath a copse of aspens just off the high road. Tyrion was gathering deadwood while their horses took water from a mountain stream. He stooped to pick up a splintered branch and examined it critically. Will this do? I'm not practiced at starting fires. Morik did that for me. A fire? Bronn said, spitting. Are you so hungry to die, dwarf? Or have you taken leave of your senses? A fire will bring the clansmen down on us from miles around. So Tyrion is just off the high road, because following the high road is certain death, whether or not this is the metaphorical high road.
Not with Tyrion, I don't think. Not now. I think he's doing everything. I think he's doing everything possible to get the clansmen there as soon as possible. So quit worrying about it.
He wants to get this resolved. He's one way or the other, right?
Yeah.
Bronn snorted. You have a bold tongue, little man. One day someone is like to cut it out and make you eat it. Everyone tells me that.
Man, as soon as I read that, I'm like, I know Richard is laughing his ass off right now.
Oh, absolutely. So, I mean, I do kind of like the whole quiet line thing. I'm not sure how that would play out or whether he'd even go through with it, but
it would be all internal monologue with him possibly writing notes to a person that don't know how to read.
Yeah, I mean, we've certainly seen that with is it Wex? Is that the name of Theon Squire? Yeah, and with we also have Jamie hanging out with Ilan Payne, who's not able to communicate very well as well. So we do already have some of this, but of course he loves his parallels. So doing it again would make a lot of sense.
Now, if you cut a person's tongue out, I mean, can't they still talk? It just sounds really bad.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, maybe not. Apparently not. I
don't know. I mean, I imagine you can try holding your tongue, which I'm not going to do it on video. I look stupid enough as it is without doing that.
But seeing if you're capable of talking that way,
you're able to talk or at least come up with a couple of words. But yeah. All right, go ahead.
Another toss of the dice. So if one option has a chance at success and every other option has zero chance, best take a chance. There's a bridge saying that basically says if you need the queen to be in one spot to make your contract, then then the queen has to be at that spot, because otherwise they're not going to make your contract.
Yeah.
Anyway, and remember what I said. This is only a taste. If you ever grow tired of Lady Erin's service, present yourself at Casterly Rock, and I'll pay you the rest of what I owe you. With Golden Dragon spilling out of both hands, Mord had fallen to his knees and promised that he would do just that. A Lannister always pays his debts, but his list is more Arya than Bran wanting to send for the littles and pay them back 100-fold for every nut and berry. There's also some imagery there that's already some foreshadowing for Tysha, right?
Yeah.
Fallen to his knees, and I'm sorry, the Golden Dragon spilling out of both hands, I think is supposed to the silver coins spilling out of Tysha's hands are going to be in here.
I can't remember when Peter Dinklage does the Tysha story. Is it when they're in their cups after the battle or before the battle or something like that?
For the show, I don't. Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah. I was just throwing the show in there for a second.
Yeah,
he does a really good job on the speech, but it's twice as good in the books.
Oh yeah.
Sorry.
No problem. By the time their bellies were full, the stars had come out and a half moon was rising over the mountains. George has the same imagery in the prologue, so it's time for Richard's explanation of moon phases. We actually already did this last episode, but in
Yeah.
case somebody tunes into this one without the other one. So the phases of the moon are based on the angle of the sun. The moon rises and sets a little less than an hour later each day, because there's 29 and a half days for the rotation instead of 24. If it rises near sunset, it will be nearly full. If it rises near sunrise, it will be nearly new. A waxing moon will be high in the sky near sunset and below the horizon near dawn. The opposite will be true for a waning moon. A half moon waxing, known as first quarter, will rise halfway between sunrise and sunset. Before time zones, this was the traditional definition of high noon. It will be near its highest point near sunset and will set halfway between sunset and sunrise, the traditional definition of midnight. A half moon waning will similarly rise at traditional midnight and set at traditional high noon. So George is giving us this image that he likes of a half moon rising shortly after sunset, which would seem to be, in theory, would mean that it was rising at midnight. And since the first chapter is supposed to be a little earlier in summer and way up north, that could almost make sense, right? You could almost see midnight being shortly after sunset, and so that sort of almost makes sense way up north. It doesn't really make sense in this chapter.
But
thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
I'm going to tell you everything you just read. I got a hat on. It ain't gonna get through that.
It's rock solid.
Yeah.
That's how it works. I mean, you can. So right now we have a waning moon, so it's going to be still up at sunrise. It's going to be down at sunset. But you can look anytime you want, and you can tell whether or not. So if you see a moon in the early evening, right after sunset, and it's way up, it's well above the horizon.
Yeah,
that's a waxing moon, guaranteed.
Okay.
Anyway, Mirish, the seasons of my love, sweet and sad if you understand the words. The first girl I ever betted used to sing it, and I've never been able to put it out of my head. Tyrion gazed up at the sky. It was a clear, cold night, and the stars shone down upon the mountains as bright and merciless as truth. I met her on a night like this, he heard himself saying. Jamie and I were riding back from Lannisport, and we heard a scream, and she came running out into the road with two men dogging her heels, shouting threats. My brother unsheathed his sword and went after them while I dismounted to protect the girl. She was scarcely a year older than I was, dark-haired, slender, with a face that would break your heart. It certainly broke mine. Low-born, half-starved, unwashed, yet lovely. They'd torn the rags she was wearing half off her back, so I wrapped her in my cloak while Jamie chased the men into the woods. By the time he came trotting back, I'd gotten a name out of her and a story. She was a crofter's child, orphaned when her father died of fever, on her way to, well, nowhere, really. Jamie was all in a lather to hunt down the men. It was not often outlaws dared prey on travelers so near to Casterly Rock, and he took it as an insult. The girl was too frightened to send off by herself, though, so I offered to take her to the closest inn and feed her while my brother rode back to the rock for help. She was hungrier than I would have believed. We finished 2 whole chickens and part of a third and drank a flagon of wine, talking. I was only 13, and the wine went to my head, I fear. The next thing I knew, I was sharing her bed. If she was shy, I was shyer. I'll never know where I found the courage. When I broke her maidenhead, she wept, but afterwards she kissed me and sang her little song, and by morning I was in love. You? Bronn's voice was amused. Absurd, isn't it? Tyrion began to whistle the song again. I married her, he finally admitted. A Lannister of Casterly Rock wed to a crofter's daughter? Bronn said. How did you manage that? Oh, you'd be astonished at what a boy can make of a few lies, 50 pieces of silver, and a drunken septon. I dared not bring my bride home to Casterly Rock, so I set her up in a cottage of her own, and for a fortnight we played at being man and wife. And then the septon sobered and confessed all to my lord father. Tyrion was surprised at how desolate it made him feel to say it, even after all these years. Perhaps he was just tired. That was the end of my marriage. He sat up and stared at the dying fire, blinking at the light. He sent the girl away? He did better than that, Tyrion said. First, he made my brother tell me the truth. The girl was a whore, you see. Jamie arranged the whole affair, the road, the outlaws, all of it. He thought it was time I had a woman. He paid double for a maiden, knowing It would be my first time. After Jamie had made his confession to drive home the lesson, Lord Tywin brought my wife in and gave her to his guards. They paid her fair enough, a silver for each man. How many horse command that high a price? He sat me down in the corner of the barracks and bade me watch. And at the end, she had so many silvers the coins were slipping through her fingers and rolling on the floor. The smoke was stinging his eyes. Tyrion cleared his throat and turned away from the fire to gaze out into the darkness. Lord Tywin had me go last, he said in a quiet voice, and he gave me a gold coin to pay her because I was a Lannister and worth more. After a time, he heard the noise again, the rasp of steel on stone as Bronn sharpened his sword. 13 or 30 or 3, I would have killed the man who did that to me. Tyrion swung around to face him. You may get that chance one day. Remember what I told you. A Lannister always pays his debts. As we just mentioned before, a Lannister pays his debts like Arya, not like Bran.
Right.
Tyrion is an echo of Ned, a bigamist marrying the daughter of Catelyn as his second wife. Another thing to note, if you actually go through the 3, we've got 3 of the 4 verses of this song, and this song winds up being some real clues as to who Bao might be. The shadows were creeping in all around them. Nice symbolism. We've talked about others as sworn to High Lords, but we also see wildlings as others or shadows. As they're sort of invading the quote civilized area, right? So the mountain clans of the Vale are also referred to as wildlings in addition to the free folk north of the Wall. And so the concept of these foreign invaders is others imagery.
Now the mountain men of the north are slightly more civilized than the mountain men of the moon, correct?
Yeah, I think that's the case, right? The Littles and so forth are supposed to be, and the Flints and all those are supposed to be more, at least more integrated into the north,
right.
As opposed to at constant war with the Arryns.
Right.
Are these the best weapons you could steal? He said. Good enough for killing sheep, perhaps, if the sheep do not fight back. My father's smith's shit better steal. Little boy man, Shagger roared, will you mock my axe after I chop off your manhood and feed it to the goats? But Gunthor raised a hand. No, I would hear his words. The mothers go hungry and steel feels more mouths than gold. What would you give us for your lives, Tyrion, son of Tywin? Swords? Lances, mail, all that and more, Gunthor, son of Gurn. Tyrion Lannister replied, smiling, I will give you the Vale of Arryn. So later on, Tyrion will delight in the clans annoying the Vale.
Yeah.
But it barely even annoys Lysa. And it's, killing innocents by the score, possibly hundreds or even thousands. It's always the intent of the author to make us side with the person who's choosing war, or to at least see their perspective as they choose war. But we're also supposed to realize that choosing war is usually wrong.
Right.
And so anyway, this is one of the whole central messages of the books, and it's heavily implied in Dance with Dragons that Dany has been doing a great job of choosing peace, but she's starting to lean more towards brutality and war, and so. That kind of is sort of one of the central themes. Another theme I've been thinking about, a repeating pattern I've been thinking about, is we've talked about it a little bit, but the repeated pattern is that there's a sworn sword to a leader who is under assault. Some dead person shows up and saves them. Or somebody they didn't expect to be able to show back up and saves them, and then their sworn sword betrays them and stabs them, right, or attacks them, or arrests them, or virtually kills them in the case of Theon. And that's definitely a pattern. So one thing to realize there is that does imply that the final war for the Dawn is probably followed by some sort of betrayal. Now, is that Jon betraying Dany? I don't know. They gave so many different roles to different people, where
Now, as
most,
roles, you're saying the people that they didn't show in the show.
yeah, right,
They're
like
in the book.
Aegon, for example. Like John was primarily serving as the a baby named Aegon born at the Tower of Joy, right?
Right.
Um, and Aegon's claim, and so it was largely about Aegon's claim versus Dany's claim, and so the question is, does that really mean that Jon will stab Dany? Certainly, combined with the fact that George has said he's leaning away from the ending of the show. He's growing more away from the ending of the show as he goes.
Right.
It's certainly hard to say that necessarily would mean that Jon would be the one stabbing Dany, but there should be somebody betraying whoever is the leader against the others, which seems like it's likely to be Dany. There should be some sort of sworn sword to Dany, betraying her and potentially attacking and maybe even killing her in theory.
Now, does it have to be Dany, or could it be Fagon?
Yeah, it could be completely backwards. But I personally think
No. I mean, I'm thinking we know Jorah is a sworn sword, but he's gone for the moment. We know that Barristan the Bold. I doubt Barristan the Bold is going to betray Dany. So the only other potential dragon.
A lot of people think he will. Actually, there's definitely. I think I want to say that the Nauticast people have specifically said they think that he will betray Dany.
I guess.
I'm pretty sure that if you go through the Nauticast, that they've talked about that in the past, that they actually do believe that Barristan's going to betray Dany.
Well, but, all right. If it's not Barristan, I'll put it that way.
I'm not claiming that. I'm just saying they claim that.
Remember me and my goosebumps? Well, just talking about Barristan the Bold betraying Dany has done gave me damn goosebumps again.
Now more importantly, I say that the pattern is that it's usually like a Kingsguard person, and that the spotted cat is the person I see as the most dangerous of the pit fighters guarding his Dar, and that Barristan is the one who's leading the army there in the war, right? And so somebody should betray him at the end of that, and they should attack him. And I could see that playing out very much like Pod and. Right, and so I believe that the I think it's the Red Lamb is the one that most resembles Pod of his new knights.
The one he likes the most.
Yeah, it's he actually has like 4 of them or something, I think. So it's hard to say, but the Red Lamb just kind of reminds me of Pod. just as the concept, one of the lamb men.
Pod on the show, or is that Pod in the book?
I mean Pod in the books.
Yeah, no. I'm talking about the Red Lamb. Oh
yeah. So am I. I'm saying that the Red Lamb is the concept of even the concept of the Red Lamb, right? Is that he's supposed to be one of the lambmen turned into a good warrior and a knight.
Right.
So anyway, that kind of reminds me of Pod and his shyness, but he steps up as a sort of a warrior and defeats the most dangerous of the Kingsguard, according to Jaime, right?
Well, that right there blows my mind. You got this little kid that stutters and stares at his feet, but you put his ass on a horse with a weapon in his hand. And I mean, granted, Tyrion's only been in 2 battles, maybe?
Right.
And he's extremely impressed at Pod's prowess as a knight. Well, not as a knight, but as a warrior. I mean, I know being horseback is an advantage and everything. But I mean, dude's badass, and he don't know it.
Yeah, maybe. So let's talk about House of the Dragon.
Yes. What'd you think of that last night?
I mean, I was watching with a friend who hasn't read the books, and he goes boring. I thought it was an interesting interpretation of the events as laid out in the books. So the books are very ambiguous as to what happened with all this.
Yeah.
And so it creates some of the interesting, nice parallels here. So we know that we've heard of the Kingmaker. We've heard of Chris and Cole in the books, specifically discussed by in Jaime's point of view and in Oakhart's point of view, right? Aerys' point of view, and Ares is certainly trying to reverse that and be the queen maker, right? So Ares is a direct parallel to Kristen. Rhaenyra's parallels. I mean, obviously she has some of the Arya and
Danny
and Brienne vibes going on, but her main parallels are Arianne, as we've discussed, in terms of the concept of a second Dance of Dragons,
Right.
and Cersei, in that she's going to be accused of having bastards and have 3 kids and name one of them Joffrey. So and so so we've got the character who's Arianne and Cersei sleeping with the character who's basically Jaime and Ares Oakheart. It's like okay, I can see that as a reasonable way to adapt this, right? And keeping in mind that that none of this is like confirmed stuff. It's all rumor as to whether did she really sleep with Daemon? Did she not? Did she sleep with Kristen? Did she not? And all that, right? So it's a history book where they have no idea, right? And it's just sort of hinted that, well, some people think that she may have rejected Kristen Cole. Some people think that Kristen Cole rejected her. Some people think that Daemon supposedly slept with her and was teaching her to enjoy sex. Now, keep in mind, we've said Daemon is supposed to be Ariane's uncle, right? Ariane's uncle, the Red Viper, right? Who Ariane definitely seemed to have feelings for, right? She even fantasized about him, and so he's showing her sex can be positive. Who is the sex positive character that we see in the books? It's the Martells, right? Arianne and specifically the Red Viper is also very, very much a sex positive person, and so the idea of her uncle having taught her to be more sex positive, it makes a lot of sense too, right? So anyway, there's a lot of things. I kind of liked it from the point of view of a reasonable interpretation of these totally ambiguous events. But in terms of, was it exciting television? No, it's not. It's not the most exciting episode.
I definitely can see a non-book reader or a non-lover of Westeros that's never read any of the books or anything, just watched Game of Thrones, get kind of scratching your head going, which I haven't read the books, but I still love the world. So, I mean, I'm willing to sit through a couple of dry times to get the payoff later on down the road. Because I know, I don't know what the payoff is.
These are important. These are important foundational relationship moments, right? Of these characters. And so you can understand why this needs to be told. And knowing that it's supposed to be a history book where nobody knows really what happened and the details of potential intimate moments and so forth, you could see that, okay, this is a reasonable adaptation of these events, especially given who all the characters are supposed to parallel and so forth, right?
Right, and who wrote it? There has to be a reason George R. R. Martin did Dance of the Dragons,
right? And
leave things to the point where you don't know exactly what goes on, but if you look at the current story, you can go, okay, we could take this, copy paste and flip it upside down, whatever, and put it in that position, and we would still get the same result. So it's real easy to sit there and look, okay, that reminds me of Arya, or that reminds me of Danny, that reminds me, it has something happened before, or in the
you get a lot of Arya vibes in this episode too, with regard to the disguise and sneaking around King's Landing and so forth, right? You're the highborn lady that people should be looking out for, and instead you're sneaking around and people think you're a boy.
I don't know how. I think she's 17 this episode. Is 17 years old?
I don't know, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, 18, when Otto Hightower walks in and says, "Hey, I got some really bad news for you. Your daughter was seen at a brothel," and Viserys was like, "And?" I'm like, okay, I have a 15-year-old daughter, and so there's certain things in this story that really I have to try to pull myself out of. But I'm looking at that guy going, "Are you freaking stupid?"
No. His point is, you're going to tell me the whole story. You're not just going to leave it as I'm implying something bad happened here. You're going to tell me, I'm going to make you say it. I really admired that. It was like, he didn't just go, oh, that's terrible. Oh no. He was like, come on, give me the specific accusation. You're making an accusation against my daughter. Yeah, I'm going to make you be specific about it. I kind of like that.
Well, I mean, if you stop and think about it, and there's a lot of people, there's especially on the Twitter sphere, talking about that Damien was basically has been up to this point trying to teach his brother how to be a Targaryen king. And I can see things here and there. And the only time that Viserys even seems or appears to be a king is when his ass gets pissed off. Yeah. When he's mad, he reminds me, I'm probably going to get yelled at about this, but it's like the Dany moments that when she gets pissed off, then you see the Targaryen. Then, because like the dragons,
you wake the dragon.
Drogon left her because she no longer was acting like a Targaryen, because she was trying to settle and all this kind of stuff. And the second that she needs him, he comes back. But for her to accept her Targaryen self is when he comes back at the very end of the books, and he's standing there with her with a Dothraki, because she done made up her mind, I'm a damn Targaryen, I'm a dragon. But when she falters, they want nothing to do with her. I mean, as soon as she gets to Meereen, she no longer is being the same person that made the trip to get to Meereen. I mean, she's still trying to accomplish some of the same things, but the way she does it isn't the same way that she did it because when you got Astapor and places like that, that's Dany. That's the Targaryen in her. And you see scenes where she's trying to be what we think a good ruler would be. And it tends to all backfire on her. Because the people that,
right.
I don't know how to explain it.
You're right. You're right. That's what it's all about. She's trying to do the right things. She's doing a great job. She's de-escalated which really was what won the respect of the Green Grace, and to the point where they could actually have a marriage alliance in peace. Right. Her decision not to kill the hostages is what really sets up the peace and sets up the potential marriage alliance and so forth. And so she's trying to do all the right things that you would do to have peace and so forth. And it's not fulfilling her, because what she really wants to be doing is killing all these people.
Well, I think it's all going to blow up with the Green Grace, with the whatever the dude's name is that she's married to.
His daughter,
everything in Meereen is just going to blow up in her face, and the burning of a town. I would see after everything blows up and she gets betrayed by everybody that's in Meereen, that's from Meereen. I can see her burning a shitload in Meereen before I see her burning King's Landing.
Well, it's probably Volantis, right? Volantis is the one with the walls that we're specifically told that the real leaders are behind and so forth. So she's probably going to wind up burning that whole section of Volantis.
Yeah.
Anyway, seems like there's something else I wanted to say. In the previous episode, we had Daemon basically with a peace banner and then attacking, right?
Right.
And that's some people have it's part of the point of Dany is that she was engaged in a transaction where it would be against custom for her to then turn around and attack, right? And so she buys the Unsullied, and then she immediately turns around and uses them to kill the people she just bought them from, which is it's supposed to be a comparison to, I think, the Red Wedding from the other point of view, right? Hey, I'm going to violate all the customs,
right?
But I'm doing it because you're an evil slaver, and whereas basically the phrase they're doing this because of the insult that the not even a king at the time didn't follow up with his marriage alliance to the phrase
that his mommy made, that
he didn't even negotiate,
Yeah. Well, I mean, you.
No, he's. Don't get me
All
wrong.
depends on whether
They're
you.
total. They're totally set up to be hypocrites deliberately, right? So
Yeah.
especially when Tyrion when they go off on Tyrion marrying Sansa. Like, has he no honor? He, he specifically promised not to do this, and they're like all upset about this. And it's like, yeah,
Talking about Tyrion.
yeah, no. Kat and Rob are both like outraged that Tyrion would marry Sansa,
Oh,
specifically because he promised in front of everyone that he basically that he wouldn't, as part of the negotiations, right? So he specifically, that they specifically complain that how could he do that? How could he marry someone after promising not to?
when it comes to the going against the words and breaking honor, and it's all about which character does it.
Right, right,
If
and
it's
why, and
Ned,
so forth, right?
yeah, if it's
And
Ned,
everything's supposed to be about motivation. So it
right,
really annoys me when people compare Rob to Tywin. So Tywin came in and burned the food to burn the
right,
food. Um, Rob specifically brings the food back to the Riverlands. Um, these people, his people, are starving because Tywin took their food. So
right.
he takes the food from Tywin's region and takes it to the Riverlands. And people say, "Oh, he's as bad as Tywin." Is it?
Yeah, no,
Motive matters. Like the
yeah,
difference between self-defense, accidents, and murder is intent, right? And intent matters. And
right.
and anyone who that I've heard typically it's racists apologizing for racism, but I've heard people claim, oh, you can never know what's in a man's heart. You can't judge that person. BS. If you couldn't judge a person, we wouldn't arrest anyone for murder, right? It's all about intent, right? It's literally the difference between self-defense, accident, and murder is intent, right?
Yeah,
It's it is you have to be able to judge motive, because that is what the crime is the motive. It's not the action of killing someone, it's why did you do it.
exactly.
Similarly, accounting fraud is why did you do it. Accounting mistakes happen. Accounting fraud is a crime. Why
Right,
was it done? Is it a pattern of behavior that leads us to conclude that this person deliberately did this? Is
right,
there a pattern of behavior that leads us to conclude? And with Rob, it's his intent to do two things. One, he needs to force Tywin Lannister to chase him, and two, he needs to feed his people. He does
right,
one thing to try and accomplish those two things. He's not going around trying to burn the Riverlands, or sorry, the Westerlands to
right.
destroy their food. He specifically gathers up their food and he does a cattle drive and he brings food back to his people.
Bonanza. Well, he's got a. I mean, his action. Somebody's going to starve because of his action.
Yeah,
Yeah, but I mean, he's taking responsibility for. I don't think he's going to take everything like Tywin did. I don't think he's going to burn crops and salt fields and do all that kind of stuff to the Westerlands. He's going to take most of what he can get, but he's still going to leave. I think he's going to leave stuff.
yeah.
Like I said, though, it's all dependent on whether or not you like the character, whether you give them leeway or
Without
not.
a doubt, right. But I just say, but primarily my point is, Tywin's motive is that he's trying to start a war. Rob's
Yeah,
motive is he's trying to win an unjust war and feed his people. and,
yeah.
and those are good motives.
Well, I mean, I'm the perfect Gemini. I understand completely, and I get hate mail on this, I promise you. I understand completely why Tywin did what he did with the red wedding. He ended it right then and there.
Sure.
Quick, easy, cost him some gold. I mean, he didn't care about lives or not of his men, but it was the simpler thing to do to end that portion of the war. But I do hate him for it still, too.
Sure.
I mean,
Sure.
understanding why he did it, and you can understand, and you can still hate that guy
Oh yeah.
for his actions.
Absolutely.
I can understand why Rob does what he does, and I love him for that. It's I mean, sometimes they do similar things, but it's for different reasons. and it's not exactly the same. So I hate this guy.
Right. Yeah. No, I'm not saying hey, Rob and Kat are
Yeah.
hypocrites. Therefore, we should hate them. I'm
No,
not
no,
saying that at all.
no.
I'm saying I'm just laughing at how hypocritical they are. Without I'm not meaning that to. I think everybody winds up. We're all sinners and we all cast stones, right?
Yep.
and so we're all a little bit hypocritical.
Some of us have to throw boulders, just so you know.
Anyway, if we want to wrap up our analysis, I would say that it wasn't the most exciting episode of House of the Dragon, but there's fundamental story issues that had to be told, and I like a lot of their choices with regard to those, and some of the interesting parallels that they create.
I give all the episodes over an 8 on every one of them. Some 8.5, some 9, some of that. I would give it a between an 8.5 and a 9, just because I love the universe. It, like I said, it has to be told.
You enjoy being immersed in the story.
Some backstory on Kristen Cole, and you have to know that. You have to, because this stuff is going to later on when you see somebody do something and you have no backstory whatsoever, you're sitting there scratching your head. Like,
right. The story is much better if you care about the characters. You have to establish that. You have to build up the characters and understand them and learn who they are.
Yeah, you slowly see Allison, the slight change in her facial expressions and stuff like that from the very first episode. You have to tell the story. You have to see that slow change, because next episode, I guarantee, is probably going to be worse than it was this episode.
Oh, one of the things that David Lightberger talked about is that both the show and George's books are often about what's the word when you put two things next to each other to show the parallels and things. Anyway, there's a specific word that he uses for it, and it's the right word, but I'm blanking on what it is. Anyway, the point is,
I never knew it.
I doubt that. Anyway, the point is that he's contrasting the Allison having to do her duty in the bedroom with Rhaenyra learning that sex can be fun, right, for the woman.
Well, they're in completely different arenas at that moment.
Right. But he's specifically trying to draw the contrast of, and in particular in this episode, you had the discussion of where she specifically is like, oh, I don't want to be locked in a cage and forced to pop out airs, and that's a terrible life. And Allison's like,
that's not her.
That's my life. What do you think about terrible life? That's my life.
It's a little bit. I mean, until we get to the marriage and having to lay in the bed, it's a little bit like Arya and Sansa.
Yep.
Allison is the Sansa type character.
Yeah.
Arya.
Yeah.
Rhaenyra is the Arya. I mean, it's freaking good. They're back and forth, and then slowly back to being friends. I mean, it has to be told the way it's being told for it to matter when episode 9 gets here. So, I mean, I enjoyed it. You only got to see one dragon at the beginning of it. Hopefully, they'll fix the CGI problems they got. I said it in my first review. It looked like modern day stop motion. But I heard Kevin Pendragon, he did a video on it saying the exact same things. And I mean, oh well, it's a nitpick, but the show is still awesome. I have not watched not Lord of the Rings, the Rings of Power episode 3 yet, so I don't know where that one's going.
Yeah,
both shows are great for completely different reasons, and I enjoy them.
Yeah.
But next chapter, I believe, is Eddard.
It is. He's on the throne. He's going to send out Beric, right? He's going to send Beric out.
Yeah.
He's going to form the Brotherhood without banners, essentially.
Yeah. Oh, the book club Friday night was pretty good. So I enjoyed it.
Refresh my memory, because it's been a while, but I know Preston talks about how basically everybody treats Crescent with pretty much respect until he basically lays out the poison and then falls asleep, telling the maester to wake him up. So the Maester's supposed to wake him up. So he lays out the poison, then he falls asleep, and then for some reason, everybody doesn't respect him anymore.
Well, I mean,
stop and think about this.
The pilots, there's a lot of,
Yeah.
I mean,
obviously Preston's point is use your head here just a little bit. What do you think happened? Like, what would happen if you did this? If you laid out all your poison and then you fell asleep and the guy who's replacing you is supposed to come wake you up? Is he really going to wake you up? Or is he going to go back to the king and say, hey, I think my predecessor is plotting treason?
Now, there is some that think Plylus, I know this ain't no topic tonight or today, but Plylus is there as a spy for Old Town, for the Citadel, because he got there right before the port, but before Stannis closed the port and everything. He saw the poison. He told Melisandre, not Stannis, because he assumed Melisandre would tell Stannis. Melisandre looks in her flames and finds out what the hell is going to happen with it. And I mean,
but it does seem like Stannis knows at this point, right? Stannis is the one that tells him not to wake him, right?
Yeah.
So that implies that he would have talked to Stannis, right?
Yeah, that's true.
And then Stannis is treating him really badly after that. And he's not treating him badly until that moment. If you look at it, both the Maester, both the Maester and Stannis are treating Crescent with reasonable respect until he freaking lays out poison and falls asleep.
Oh my goodness! We know Davos sees it. Does he see it in the book? I can't remember.
I don't know. That's what another thing is like. It almost seems like Davos may have been present as everybody was told, because it feels like everybody knows that they should not be respecting Crescent at this point. So it almost feels like it was public. Like maybe Tylos went and said, "Hey, you're not gonna believe this, but Crescent has laid out poison. He's getting ready to kill somebody," and it may be that literally everybody knows, because Davos really does act like he knows, and everybody's treating him with derision to the point where it's like maybe this was public. Maybe literally everybody,
because you got patch face on him like that.
Yeah, so that's what I need to go back and read it really carefully next time, thinking to myself, do we see nothing but respect followed by nothing but derision from literally everyone? And I feel like that might be the case. And Preston is basically made that argument that what's happened here is we have a man who literally made it obvious that he's planning to kill somebody.
Well, you got to stop and think. In Stannis's eyes,
treason.
Poison is a craven's tool. I mean, he doesn't respect anybody that would do that. If you're going to fight somebody or kill somebody, you need to stand face to face.
And you decided to kill my advisor without going through me. Yeah, like that's an attack on me, right? Anyway.
He even imprisons Davos for trying to kill Melisandre. I mean, what do you think he's going to do to the Maester? I mean, it's just
So it certainly makes the mistreatment of him more understandable if that's what's going on.
Unfortunately, I didn't get to read the chapter.
Yeah,
because my 7-year-old son. But this Friday, the 3 chapters that they're going to talk about, I'll have read and have actual little notes here and there.
Oh, good.
But that's pretty cool. All right, next chapter is Eddard. That would be Wednesday, correct?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. All right. Anybody that watched this, we appreciate it. And we will see you Wednesday with Eddard in House of Dragon, Game of Thrones. And I have been Old New Dude, and he has been
Richard York, Asher's True One Son.
All right, we'll see y'all Wednesday. Y'all be good. Stay safe.
Bye.